First contact and ridicule. The vast crystalline chamber of the Galactic Confederation headquarters hummed with the voices of 1,000 different species. Captain Maya Chen stood at attention, her weathered Earth defense uniform looking plain and utilitarian against the ornate garments of the older spacefaring races. Behind her, the rest of the Phoenix crew, 12 humans representing the best Earth had to offer, maintained perfect military posture despite having stood for nearly 3 hours as speeches droned on in the common galactic language. At 42, Chen was considered young for her position. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray, a testament to the stress of leading humanity's first true interstellar vessel. The scars on her hands told stories of the years spent personally helping to build the ship that now orbited the Confederation capital world. And now, announced High Chancellor Zorex, a being with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies within them, we welcome our newest petitioners, the humans of Earth, who wish to present their contribution to our combined fleet. Murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Earth had only made first contact with the Confederation 8 months ago, when a scout ship had detected unusual energy signatures from experiments with dimensional folding technology. Most established races viewed humans as lucky children who had stumbled onto the galactic stage before they were ready. Chen stepped forward, head held high. Behind her, a massive holographic display activated, showing an image that made several aliens gasp or make sounds that their translators rendered as disapproval or amusement. I present the Earth Defense Vessel Phoenix, designation JF-07, Chen said proudly. The ship on the display looked cobbled together from mismatched parts. Its hull was clearly made from different alloys welded together in sections. One portion appeared to be converted from an old orbital station. Another seemed built from repurposed mining vessels. The engines were visibly different models grafted together in a configuration that defied conventional engineering principles. Silence filled the hall until a thunderous sound broke it, the equivalent of laughter from Admiral Krav, Supreme Commander of the Confederation fleet. The massive 6-limbed being stepped forward, towering nearly 3 meters tall with crimson skin and eyes set in a triad pattern. This must be a joke, Krav said, translator struggling to keep up with his rumbling voice. This junkyard collection is your military contribution? Chen's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. The Phoenix may not look impressive, Admiral, but she's more adaptable and resilient than you might think. Resilient? Krav made that thunderous noise again. Other delegates joined in. It looks like it would disintegrate if it attempted to reach half-light speed. Chen had expected mockery. Earth was still new to interstellar travel and resources were limited. They had built what they could with what they had. Appearances can be deceiving, Admiral. Krav stepped closer, looming over Chen. Let me be clear, human. The Confederation has standards. That pile of scrap you call a ship would be a liability in any real conflict. It might be good enough for your primitive solar system, but out here, it's worse than useless. The hall had grown quiet again. The Earth delegation shifted uncomfortably behind Chen. Perhaps, Chen said carefully, you'd allow us to demonstrate the Phoenix's capabilities. A thin smile spread across Krav's face. As it happens, the Confederation is conducting fleet exercises next week to test our readiness against the Scourge. Incursions. Originally, we weren't going to invite Earth to participate as you clearly have nothing to contribute. He gestured toward the screen where the Phoenix still hung awkwardly in space. But I'm feeling generous today. Bring your, ship. It will serve as an excellent target for our gunners. Laughter erupted again, louder this time. Chen felt heat rising in her face but kept her expression neutral. We accept your invitation, Admiral. Krav's smile faltered slightly. He had expected Chen to back down. Very well. But don't say I didn't warn you when your crew is floating home in escape pods. After the ceremony, Chen met with her team in a small room provided for the Earth delegation. The mood was grim. They laughed at us, said Lieutenant Raj Patel, the Phoenix's pilot. At 35, he was the youngest senior officer on the crew, with quick eyes that constantly scanned his surroundings. Before joining Earth's space program, He had been a champion in experimental aircraft racing and had an unmatched feel for unconventional flight dynamics. "Let them laugh," Chen replied. "It won't matter when they see what we can do." Dr. Elena Torres, the ship's chief engineer, scratched her head thoughtfully. Older than Chen by a few years, Torres had spent her life making impossible technologies work. Her hands were permanently stained with engine grease and nanopolymer residue. "The Phoenix isn't ready for military exercises, Maya," Torres said. "We're still testing the new dimensional fold integration system." "Then we'll have to get her ready," Chen said firmly. "We have 1 week." "With all due respect, Captain," said Dr. James Wilson, the science officer, "Admiral Krav wasn't entirely wrong about everything." Tall and thin with careful movements, Wilson had been a theoretical physicist specializing in dimensional mathematics before joining the space program. "Our ship is built from salvaged parts. Some of the technology is decades old by Earth standards, millennia behind the Confederation." Chen moved to the window overlooking the spaceport where ships from hundreds of worlds sat in neat rows. Among them, looking distinctly out of place, was the Phoenix. In the strange purple light of the alien sun, its patchwork construction was even more obvious. "Do you know why I named her the Phoenix?" Chen asked. When no one answered, she continued, "Because humans have always excelled at taking what others discard and making something new, something unexpected. The Confederation sees us as primitive upstarts who got lucky with dimensional folding. They're right that we're behind in technology, but they're wrong about our capabilities." Torres nodded slowly. "The modifications I've been working on, they're unconventional, but they might give us an edge. My simulator results suggest we can execute maneuvers their targeting systems won't predict," Patel added, a spark of excitement in his voice. "And I've been studying their battle formations," Wilson said. "They follow patterns they don't even recognize themselves." Chen smiled. This was why she had chosen this crew. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The Confederation races have been at peace so long they've forgotten how to truly innovate. They follow rules and traditions that are centuries old." She looked at each of them in turn. "We have 1 week to make our pile of scrap into something that will shock the entire Galactic Confederation. Let's get to work." The next morning, as the Earth delegation prepared to return to their ship, a young aide from Admiral Krav's staff approached Chen. "Captain," the aide said nervously, "Admiral Krav wished me to provide you with the coordinates and protocols for the fleet exercises." Chen took the offered data crystal, thanked the Admiral for his consideration. The aide hesitated. "He also asked me to remind you that the Confederation will not be responsible for any structural failures your vessel might experience during the exercises." "Tell the Admiral not to worry about us," Chen replied. "We'll be ready." As the aide hurried away, Chen looked up at the vast ceiling of the spaceport where ships of all designs moved smoothly through docking procedures. Far above, barely visible through the atmospheric shield, the massive form of Admiral Krav's flagship, the Indomitable, hung in orbit like a predator watching for prey. "Laugh all you want," Chen muttered to herself. "You won't be laughing for long." The Phoenix hung in Earth orbit, its patchwork hull gleaming in the sunlight. From a distance, it looked even more like a collection of spare parts than it had on the holographic displays at the Confederation headquarters. Up close, the welds and seams between different sections were clearly visible, telling the story of its hurried construction. Inside the ship's main engineering bay, Elena Torres lay on her back beneath an open panel, her face illuminated by the glow of dimensional fold circuits. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she carefully calibrated a connection that no engineering manual would ever recommend. "Hand me the phase inducer," she called out, extending her hand without looking. A young engineer, Marcus Kim, placed the tool in her waiting palm. "This is crazy, Elena. Mixing Confederation quantum resonators with our dimensional fold tech? It could collapse space-time around the whole ship." Torres slid out from under the panel with a grunt. Her once white jumpsuit was now smeared with lubricant and coolant fluid. "That's exactly what the Confederation folks would say. That's why they'd never try it." She grinned. "And that's why they'll never see it coming." Captain Chen entered the engineering bay, ducking under a low-hanging conduit. The Phoenix had not been designed with comfort in mind, and at least a third of the corridors required tall crew members to stoop. "How's it coming, Elena?" Chen asked, looking at the mess of wiring and components spread across the floor. Torres wiped her hands on a rag. "I've got the hybrid dimensional system working, sort of. We can now channel energy between our Earth, full generators and the Confederation quantum matrices we salvaged from that abandoned outpost. Sort of." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Well, it won't collapse the universe. Probably." Torres smiled. "But it gives us something unique. The Confederation ships all use standardized quantum systems. They're efficient, stable, and predictable. Ours is none of those things, but it can do something theirs can't. Which is," Torres's eyes lit up with excitement, "dimensional ghosting. We can create energy fluctuations that will make us appear to be in slightly different positions than we actually are. Their targeting computers will get confused." Chen nodded slowly. "How long until it's combat ready?" 3 days, maybe, if we work around the clock." "You have 2, Chen said firmly. "The fleet exercises start in 6 days and we need time for testing." Torres sighed. "I'll need more help then. And parts. You'll have them." Chen turned to leave but stopped. "Oh, and Elena? Make sure it really won't collapse the universe." "No. Promises, Captain," Torres called after her with a chuckle. In the simulator room 2 decks above, Raj Patel sat in a replica of the Phoenix's cockpit, his hands dancing over the controls. On the screen in front of him, a virtual representation of the ship performed a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Chen watched from the doorway as the simulated ship spun on its axis while continuing forward momentum, then cut its engines only to reignite them in a pattern that looked almost random. After a particularly impossible-looking turn, Patel removed his simulator helmet and noticed Chen. "Captain, I didn't see you there." "What was that last move?" Chen asked, pointing to the replay on a secondary screen. "I've never seen anything like it." Patel's face lit up. "I call it the ghost dance. It only works because of our uneven weight distribution and Elena's adjustable dimensional field generators." He pointed to different parts of the ship diagram. "A normal ship would tear itself apart trying this, but the Phoenix, she's already a bit broken so she can bend in ways other ships can't. Will it work in actual combat?" Patel nodded confidently. "The Confederation ships are all designed with perfect balance and symmetry. Their combat computers predict movement based on those principles. They won't know how to target something that moves like it's falling apart." "Keep working on it," Chen said. "I want a full set of these unorthodox maneuvers ready for combat. Drills in 3 days." "Yes, ma'am," Patel replied, already reaching for his helmet to continue practice. Chen made her way to the science lab, where James Wilson stood before a large display showing recordings of Confederation fleet exercises that their intelligence division had managed to acquire. Wilson didn't notice Chen enter. He was too focused on the movements of the ships on the screen. "Found anything useful?" Chen asked. Wilson jumped slightly, then adjusted his glasses. "Captain, yes, actually, look at this." He pointed to the formation of ships on the display. "The Confederation fleet has been using the same basic tactics for over 500 years. They value tradition and proven methods. That makes them predictable." "Exactly," Wilson agreed. "They follow patterns they don't even realize are patterns. For instance, their ships always approach in these specific formations." He pulled up another display. "And when they attack, they follow standard protocols taught at their academy." He tapped a few controls and a simulation began to run, showing how the Phoenix might exploit these patterns. "If we know what they're going to do before they do it, we can position ourselves to surprise them." Chen nodded approvingly. "Keep analyzing. I want counter tactics for every standard Confederation maneuver." As Chen left the science lab, her communication device beeped. The face of General Rivera, Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Confederation, appeared on the small screen. "Captain, we have a situation," Rivera said without preamble. "Our intelligence suggests that Admiral Krav has assigned spies to observe your preparations." Chen frowned. "Inside the ship?" No, but they're watching from orbit. A small Confederation vessel has been stationed just outside Earth's security perimeter. They're scanning your ship. Chen thought for a moment. Let them watch, General. In fact, I have an idea. The next day, Torres directed a team to begin work on the outer hull of the Phoenix. They attached what appeared to be additional armor plating and new weapon systems. From a distance, it looked like a significant upgrade. Are those real weapons? Chen asked as she and Torres observed the work from a viewport. Torres grinned. They're empty shells, but they look impressive, don't they? Our Confederation friends will waste time analyzing weapons that don't exist while we finish the real modifications inside. Chen clapped Torres on the shoulder. Good thinking. Later that evening, Chen called her senior officers to the ship's small briefing room. The walls were bare metal, unlike the elegant meeting chambers of Confederation vessels. We have 5 days left, Chen began. Our Confederation friends are watching us, thinking they know what we're doing. Let them think that. Meanwhile, I want each of you to push harder. She activated a display showing a classified intelligence report. This isn't just about proving ourselves at the fleet exercises anymore. Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of Confederation space. The Scourge ships are moving again. The room fell silent as the officers processed this information. The Scourge was a mysterious and relentless force that had been raiding Confederation worlds for centuries. They weren't an existential threat to the massive Confederation, but they were dangerous and unpredictable. Are you saying the exercises might turn real? Patel asked. Chen's expression was grim. I'm saying we need to be ready for anything. The Confederation races have been at peace so long they've forgotten what real danger looks like. We humans haven't had that luxury. She looked at each of her officers in turn. We have 5 days to turn this scrap ship into something that can not only surprise our Confederation friends, but possibly save them as well. Let's get to work. As the meeting ended, Chen remained behind, looking at the star chart displaying the mysterious readings at the edge of known space. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the way sailors of old could sense a storm on the horizon. The Phoenix might be a patchwork of salvaged parts, but it was Earth's best hope, and now possibly the Confederation's too, whether they knew it or not. Trial by fire. The vast emptiness of space around the Confederation fortress world, Nexus Prime had been transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Over 300 ships from across the Galactic Confederation hung in precise formation, their sleek designs reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. Among them, looking distinctly out of place, was the Earth vessel Phoenix. From the command deck of the imposing Indomitable, Admiral Krav watched the Earth ship with a mixture of amusement and contempt. Even with its apparent new modifications, the Phoenix looked like a child's toy next to the massive warships of the main fleet. They actually showed up, Krav remarked to his second-in-command, a slender reptilian officer named Trisk. I was half expecting them to find an excuse to back out. Humans are known for their stubbornness, Admiral, Trisk replied. Though I admit bringing that heap of metal into a combat exercise shows either great courage or complete foolishness. Krav nodded. Assign them to target practice group 3. They might as well serve some purpose before they're forced to withdraw. Inside, the Phoenix Captain Chen and her crew were making final preparations. The ship hummed with an uneven energy that would have alarmed any Confederation engineer, but felt just right to the humans who had spent the last week fine-tuning it. All systems are as ready as they'll ever be, Torres reported from her engineering station. Her voice carried the weariness of someone who hadn't slept properly in days. The hybrid dimensional system is stable. Well, stable enough. Patel sat at the pilot's controls, his fingers dancing across the panel as he ran through pre-maneuver checks. Flight systems responding. All those simulator hours better pay off. They will, Chen assured him. She turned to Wilson at the science station. What's our assignment? Wilson frowned as he read the incoming transmission. We've been assigned to target practice group 3, ma'am. Essentially, we're supposed to act as moving targets for the main fleet's weapons drills. A murmur of discontent spread through the bridge crew. Chen's face remained calm. Perfect. They're underestimating us even more than I'd hoped. She opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is Captain Chen. The fleet exercises begin in 30 minutes. Remember your training, remember why we're here, and remember that every being who laughed at our ship is watching. Let's show them what humans can do. The first exercise was simple. The target practice group would attempt to evade simulated weapons fire from the main fleet for 10 minutes. Any ship hit 3 times would be considered destroyed and would have to withdraw. 7 Confederation ships from minor worlds made up the rest of the target group. They all carried the standard design elements of Confederation vessels: smooth lines, perfect symmetry, and conventional propulsion systems. The exercise began with a signal from the Indomitable. Immediately, the 7 Confederation ships began evasive maneuvers, following textbook patterns taught at the Galactic Academy. The Phoenix, however, did nothing. It simply drifted, appearing almost dead in space. "What are they doing?" Krav asked, leaning forward in his command chair. "Have they had a system failure already?" From a tactical station, an officer replied. "Their power readings are fluctuating, Admiral. They may be experiencing problems." Krav smiled. "Target them first. Put them out of their misery." 3 Confederation cruisers turned their targeting systems toward the seemingly helpless Earth vessel. The computers calculated the simple trajectory and fired simulated weapons. According to every prediction model, the shots would score direct hits. But at the last possible second, the Phoenix's engines flared to life in an erratic pattern. The ship didn't just move, it jerked sideways in a motion that looked like a mechanical failure, but was precisely calculated. All 3 shots missed, on the Phoenix's bridge. Patel grinned as he executed the maneuver he had practiced hundreds of times in simulation. Ghost dance successful. They missed by a kilometer. Chen nodded approvingly. "Now show them the falling star." Patel's hands flew over the controls. The Phoenix suddenly cut all forward thrusters and appeared to tumble end over end. The Confederation targeting computers predicted it would continue this tumble and fired accordingly. But Patel fired the port thrusters in a pattern that made no conventional sense. The ship lurched in a completely unexpected direction, evading all incoming fire. On the Indomitable, confusion was spreading among the tactical officers. "Sir, we can't get a lock," reported the weapons officer. "Their movements don't follow any recognizable pattern." Krav frowned deeply. "Assign 2 more cruisers to target them, they're just getting lucky." Back on the Phoenix, Torres was working frantically at her engineering station. "Dimensional fluctuations are within tolerable limits, but the starboard projectors are heating up faster than expected," she reported. "We can maintain this level of maneuvering for another 7 minutes at most." "That's all we need," Chen replied. "Raj, time for the next phase." Patel nodded and initiated a sequence they had called the Phantom Echo. Thanks to Torres's modified dimensional system, the Phoenix began emitting energy signatures that confused the Confederation sensors, making the ship appear to be slightly offset from its actual position. On the Indomitable's tactical display, the Phoenix seemed to split into 3 overlapping images. "What's happening?" Krav demanded. "Is that some kind of sensor malfunction?" The tactical officer shook his head in confusion. "The sensors are working correctly, Admiral. Somehow they're creating false readings. I've never seen anything like it." Krav's face darkened. "Target all 3 images. Fire everything we have." A barrage of simulated fire headed toward the Phoenix, enough to destroy any ship 3 times. Over. But Patel executed a series of impossible maneuvers while Torres pushed the dimensional system to its limits, creating phantom sensor readings that scattered in different directions. Every shot missed. Wilson, monitoring the Confederation communications channels, smiled broadly. "Ma'am, the other ships in our group have all been eliminated, but we haven't taken a single hit. We've lasted the full 10 minutes. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Chen allowed herself a small smile but raised her hand for quiet. "This is just the first exercise. They'll adapt. Be ready for Phase 2. As the Phoenix rejoined the fleet formation, communication channels buzzed with chatter about the Earthship's unexpected performance. Several captains from smaller worlds transmitted messages of congratulations while the major powers remained noticeably silent. Admiral Krav was furious. He paced the bridge of the Indomitable, his triad of eyes narrowed to slits. It was a fluke, he insisted. A combination of luck and our gunner's complacency. The next exercise will be different. For the second exercise, the fleet was divided into two opposing forces for a simulated battle. Naturally, Krav assigned the Phoenix to the weaker side, commanded by junior officers. The commander of this secondary force, Captain Lixal of the Mentari systems, initially regarded the Earthship with skepticism, but after witnessing its performance, in the first exercise she contacted Chen directly. "Captain, your ship's capabilities are unexpected," Lixal admitted. "I would like to incorporate your unique abilities into our battle plan." Chen nodded respectfully. "We would be honored, Captain. We have some suggestions that might surprise the opposing force." When the second exercise began, the main fleet expected a conventional approach from the secondary force. Instead, the Phoenix took point position, using its strange energy signature to confuse the enemy sensors. Behind it, the other ships of the secondary force arranged themselves in a formation that Wilson had designed based on his analysis of Confederation blind spots. The result was devastating. The Phoenix darted and weaved through the enemy formation, drawing fire and confusing targeting systems. Meanwhile, the ships following in its wake scored hit after hit on the distracted enemy vessels. Within 15 minutes, the exercise was over. The secondary force had achieved a victory that should have been impossible, according to all Confederation military doctrine. As the ships regrouped for the next exercise, Admiral Krav's voice came over the common channel, tight with barely controlled anger. "Attention all vessels. There has been a change to the exercise parameters. For the remaining drills, all ships will use standard Confederation maneuvering protocols only. Any unorthodox tactics are now forbidden." Chen exchanged looks with her bridge crew. Torres rolled her eyes while Patel made a rude gesture toward the communication panel that thankfully wasn't being transmitted. "He's changing the rules," Wilson said quietly. Chen nodded. "Because we're winning." She opened a channel to respond. "Admiral Krav, Captain Chen here. We respectfully request clarification. The purpose of these exercises is to test combat readiness. In real combat, the enemy won't follow standard protocols." There was a long pause before Krav responded. "The purpose of these exercises is to ensure all Confederation members can function as part of a cohesive fleet. Your improvisations disrupt unit cohesion. Follow the protocols or withdraw from the exercises." Chen muted the channel and turned to her crew. "Options?" Torres shrugged. "We could comply and still do reasonably well. Our ship is more responsive than they realize, even with conventional maneuvers." "Or," Patel added with a gleam in his eye, "we could push the boundaries of what counts as standard protocols." Chen smiled slowly. "Let's find out exactly how far those boundaries stretch." The war games continued, and though the Phoenix was now forced to operate within more restricted parameters, it still performed far better than anyone had expected. By the end of the day, several Confederation captains had approached Chen to learn more about Earth's shipbuilding techniques. As the fleet prepared to dock at the Nexus Prime Station for the night cycle, Chen received an unexpected communication. It was from Captain Lixal. "Captain Chen, your ship and crew have earned my respect today. Some of us are gathering to discuss tomorrow's exercises. I believe you would have valuable input. Will you join us?" Chen looked around at her tired but proud crew. "It seems we've made some friends after all." Torres grinned. "Better enjoy it. While it lasts, Captain. Something tells me Admiral Krav is already planning how to put us in our place tomorrow." Chen nodded. "Let him try." The second day of war games dawned with a tense atmosphere throughout the fleet. The Phoenix's unexpected success had disturbed the comfortable hierarchies of the Galactic Confederation. Junior officers from smaller worlds looked at the Earthship with newfound respect, while the major powers regarded it with suspicion. Captain Chen had spent the previous evening with Captain Lixal and several other officers who had shown interest in the Phoenix's performance. The meeting had been productive, with Chen sharing some of Earth's more conventional tactical innovations, while carefully guarding their true secrets. Now, as the fleet prepared for the day's exercises, Chen stood on the Phoenix's bridge feeling cautiously optimistic. Admiral Krav had scheduled a complex simulation involving defense against a hypothetical invasion force, exactly the kind of scenario where the Phoenix's unusual capabilities might shine despite the new restrictions. All systems nominal, Torres reported from engineering. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed her lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. I've adjusted the dimensional projectors to run cooler today. We should be able to maintain full maneuverability for up to 20 minutes at a time. Patel nodded from the pilot station. I've studied the standard protocols all night. There's more flexibility than Krav thinks. We can still surprise them. Wilson, however, wasn't listening. He stood hunched over his science station, frowning at the readings on his display. Captain, he called, I'm picking up something strange at the edge of our sensor range. Chen moved to his side. Explain. Wilson pointed to a series of energy spikes on his display. These readings, they're not part of the exercise. I'm detecting dimensional distortions consistent with multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But they're using a different method than Confederation technology. Chen's blood ran cold. The Scourge? Wilson nodded grimly. The signature matches what little we know about their propulsion systems. And, Captain, there are a lot of them. Chen immediately opened a channel to the Indomitable. Admiral Krav, this is Captain Chen of the Phoenix. We're detecting multiple, unknown vessels approaching the exercise area. They match Scourge energy signatures. Krav's face appeared on the screen, his expression one of irritation. Captain Chen, if this is some attempt to disrupt the exercises or gain sympathy— With all due respect, Admiral, Chen interrupted. Check your own long-range sensors. Focus on grid sector 227 Alpha. You should see them now. There was a pause, as Krav consulted with his officers off-screen. When his face returned, the irritation had been replaced by concern. We're detecting them. How did your sensors pick them up before ours? Our system is unconventional, Chen replied. The dimensional ghosting technology we use for evasive maneuvers can also detect distortions in space-time from greater distances than standard sensors. Krav's expression was unreadable for a moment. Then he nodded. I'm ordering the fleet to battle stations. All ships are to form up according to Confederation Defense Protocol Delta 7. Admiral, Chen said quickly, those formations were designed for conventional attacks. The Scourge ships are faster and more maneuverable than you might expect. Are you presuming to instruct me on fleet tactics, Captain? Krav's voice was dangerous. No, Admiral. I'm offering information based on our analysis of previous Scourge attacks. Krav seemed about to dismiss her, then hesitated. Send your analysis to my tactical officer. I will consider it. The channel closed. Chen turned to her crew. Battle. Stations. This is no longer an exercise. The Scourge attack came swiftly and without warning. One moment, the Confederation fleet was arranging itself in defensive formations. The next, over 30 Scourge vessels dropped out of dimensional space directly among them. The Scourge ships were unlike anything in the Confederation. Black and spiny, they resembled nothing so much as deep-sea predators, all sharp angles and threatening protrusions. They moved with a fluidity that defied their menacing appearance, darting between the larger Confederation vessels before they could properly respond. On the Phoenix, Chen watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Confederation ships were trying to maintain their formal battle formations, but the Scourge weren't cooperating with this plan. They targeted the smaller vessels first, overwhelming them with concentrated fire before the larger ships could respond. They're using pack-hunting tactics, Wilson observed. Just like in the historical records. They isolate the weakest members of the formation and overwhelm them. And the Confederation is letting them by sticking to rigid formations, Chen added. She opened a channel to the group of ships they'd worked with the previous day. Captain, Lixal, this is Chen. The standard formations aren't working. Request permission to coordinate a counterattack with your battle group. Lixal's voice came back immediately. Granted, Captain. My ships will follow your lead. Chen nodded to Wilson. Send them the alternate formation plans we discussed last night. Raj, take us in. Elena, give us everything the dimensional system can handle. The Phoenix broke from the main formation, followed by 7 ships from Lixal's command. Instead of the tight geometric patterns favored by the Confederation, they arranged themselves in an asymmetrical formation that seemed almost random. Ghost Echo active, Torres reported as she activated their dimensional cloaking system. The effect was immediate. The Phoenix and its accompanying ships began to flicker on sensors, appearing to be in multiple places at once. As they approached a cluster of Scourge vessels attacking a Confederation cruiser, the enemy ships seemed momentarily confused. Fire Pattern Alpha, Chen ordered. Target their propulsion systems. The small battle group opened fire in a coordinated pattern that Wilson had calculated based on the Scourge ship's movements. 3 enemy vessels took direct hits to their engines before they could react, drifting powerlessly. From the Indomitable, Admiral Krav watched in astonishment as the ragtag group led by the Earth vessel achieved what his main battle squadrons could not, a direct and effective counter to the Scourge tactics. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human formation is working. The Scourge..." The final stand 3 weeks had passed since the surprise Scourge attack at Nexus Prime. The Phoenix had spent that time in the Confederation's premier orbital shipyard, undergoing repairs and, to the surprise of Captain Chen and her crew, upgrades. Standing in the shipyard's observation lounge, Chen hardly recognized her vessel. The patchwork hull had been reinforced with Confederation alloys, though at her insistence they had maintained the Phoenix's distinctive appearance, rather than conforming it to Confederation design standards. New weapon systems had been grafted onto the existing frame, and the propulsion system had been enhanced with Confederation technology that complemented rather than replaced the human innovations. "They've actually made it uglier," Torres remarked, coming to stand beside Chen at the viewpoint. "I didn't think that was possible." Chen smiled. "But more functional. The dimensional system? Better than ever," Torres replied with pride. Their engineers were skeptical at first, but once they understood the principles, they made some surprisingly useful modifications. "We can now maintain ghost projection for up to 30 minutes without overheating." "Good," Chen said. "Something tells me we're going to need it." Behind them, the door slid open and Admiral Krav entered the lounge. Both humans turned and saluted, a gesture Krav acknowledged with a nod. "Captain Chen, Engineer Torres," he greeted them formally. "I trust the upgrades meet your specifications." "They exceed them, Admiral," Chen replied. "We appreciate the Confederation's generosity." Krav moved to stand beside them at the viewport, his 3 eyes studying the Phoenix. "It was not generosity, Captain. It was necessity." He turned to face them, his expression grave. The attack at Nexus Prime was not an isolated incident. In the past 3 weeks, the Scourge have hit 7 Confederation outposts. Their tactics have changed. They're more aggressive, more coordinated. Chen frowned. The intelligence report suggested they were typically raiders, not an organized military force. "That appears to be changing," Krav said. "Our analysts believe they're gathering for a major offensive." He hesitated, then added, "Against Earth." Chen's blood ran cold. "Earth? Why?" "Your dimensional technology," Krav explained. "The Scourge use a similar but cruder system for their propulsion. Your innovations, particularly the ghosting capability, represent a significant advancement that threatens their one advantage." "How did they learn about it?" Torres asked. "The battle at Nexus Prime?" Krav nodded. "We believe their command ship transmitted data before it was destroyed. The Scourge now see Earth as both a threat and a prize. If they could capture your technology, they would have a decisive advantage over the Confederation," Chen finished. "Precisely." Krav straightened. "The Confederation Council has voted unanimously to commit our forces to Earth's defense. I have been tasked with coordinating this effort and have chosen the Phoenix as my command's liaison vessel." Chen blinked in surprise. "That's quite a change from your initial assessment of our ship, Admiral." Krav made a sound that the translation matrix interpreted as a rueful chuckle. I have served the Confederation for 3 centuries, Captain. In that time I have learned that admitting when one is wrong is a necessary quality in a commander. He gestured toward the Phoenix. Your rust bucket ship and its unorthodox tactics saved many lives at Nexus Prime. More importantly, you demonstrated adaptability, a quality the Confederation fleet has lacked for too long. Thank you, Admiral, Chen said, genuinely moved by the admission. Don't thank me yet, Krav replied grimly. We depart for Earth in 6 hours. Long-range scouts report a Scourge fleet gathering at the edge of your solar system. This will not be a skirmish, Captain. It will be war. The journey to Earth took 3 days at maximum speed. A fleet of 120 Confederation vessels, led by the Indomitable with the Phoenix at its side, dropped out of dimensional space at the edge of the solar system. They weren't a moment too soon. Sensors immediately detected over 70 Scourge vessels approaching from the direction of the Kuiper Belt. On the Phoenix's bridge, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Chen had assembled her best crew, augmented by Confederation specialists who had been assigned to facilitate coordination between the Allied forces. Scourge fleet holding position at approximately 2 billion kilometers from Earth, Wilson reported, from the science station. They appear to be waiting for something. Reinforcements, most likely, said Commander Trisk, Admiral Krav's liaison officer who had been assigned to the Phoenix. This is a standard Scourge tactic. Gather their forces before launching a full assault. Chen nodded. Then we have a window of opportunity. We need to engage them before their numbers increase further. The communication panel chimed, and Admiral Krav's face appeared. Captain Chen, I've reviewed your tactical proposal. It's unorthodox. That seems to be our specialty, Admiral, Chen replied with a slight smile. Krav nodded. Indeed. The Confederation fleet will follow your plan. We will deploy as suggested and await your signal to engage. As the channel closed, Torres looked at Chen with raised eyebrows. The mighty Admiral Krav following a human battle plan? I never thought I'd see the day. Necessity makes for strange bedfellows, Chen replied. Raj, move us into position. Elena, prepare the dimensional system for maximum ghost projection. James, continue monitoring for additional Scourge signatures. The Phoenix broke from the main fleet, accompanied by 20 smaller, faster Confederation vessels. While the bulk of the Confederation force maintained a defensive position between the Scourge and Earth, this smaller group began a wide arc that would bring them around. Behind the enemy fleet, dimensional ghosting activated, Torres reported. All ships in our group are synchronized with our projection matrix. On both friendly and enemy sensors, the Phoenix and its escort appeared to multiply, creating the illusion of a much larger force approaching from an unexpected vector. The Scourge fleet reacted immediately, a portion of their ships breaking off to intercept this new threat. They've taken the bait, Wilson reported. 25 Scourge vessels moving to engage our group. Chen nodded in satisfaction. Perfect. Raj, execute Phase 2. Patel's hands flew over the controls. The Phoenix and its escorts abruptly changed course, accelerating directly toward the heart of the Scourge formation. At the same time, their ghosting technology created the impression of their ships continuing on their original course. The Scourge vessels, confused by the contradictory sensor readings, split their forces further, some continuing to chase the ghost images while others turned to meet the real threat. Now, Admiral, Chen transmitted to the Indomitable. At her signal, the main Confederation fleet surged forward, catching the disorganized Scourge forces in a devastating crossfire. The battle was joined in earnest. The Phoenix darted through the chaos, its enhanced weapons targeting Scourge command and control nodes that Wilson had identified. Around them, Confederation ships fought with a flexibility and adaptability they had never before displayed, many adopting variations of the tactics the Phoenix had demonstrated weeks earlier. For a time, it seemed the combined Earth Confederation strategy would carry the day. The Scourge forces, though numerous, were disorganized and struggling to adapt to the unexpected tactics. Then Wilson's console blared an alarm. Captain, dimensional distortions detected. Massive signatures, at least 40 more Scourge vessels incoming. Chen's moment of optimism faded. Location? They're emerging directly between us and the main fleet, Wilson reported grimly. We're cut off. The tactical display confirmed his assessment. The Phoenix and its escort group were now isolated from the main Confederation forces by a wall of newly arrived Scourge vessels. Admiral Krav's voice came through the communication system, distorted by interference. Captain Chen, fall back to coordinates Delta 9. We will attempt to open a corridor for your group to rejoin the fleet. Chen studied the tactical display, her mind racing. Retreating to the designated coordinates would take them away from the battle, forcing the Confederation fleet to fight without their support until they could regroup. In that time, the Scourge might overwhelm their allies. Admiral, she replied. Negative, we're proceeding to the Scourge command vessel. Krav's voice rose in volume. That's suicide, Captain. You're outnumbered 4-1. Sometimes the best defense is a decisive offense, Chen responded, quoting one of Earth's ancient military strategists. Trust me, Admiral. This is what the Phoenix was built for. She closed the channel before Krav could order her to stand down, then turned to her crew. Everyone clear on what we're about to do? Torres, Patel, and Wilson exchanged glances, then nodded. Engineering ready, Torres confirmed. Dimensional system at maximum capacity. I've rerouted emergency power to the ghost projectors. We'll burn them out. But we should get about 45 minutes at peak performance. Navigation plotted, Patel added. It'll be tight, but I can get us through their formation to the command ship. Weapons locked on priority targets, Wilson finished. I've identified vulnerabilities in their command and control network. Hit them in the right sequence, and we might cause a cascade failure. Chen smiled grimly. Then let's make it count. All hands, battle stations, Raj, take us in. The Phoenix surged forward, its escort group following close behind. As they approached the wall of Scourge vessels, Torres activated the enhanced ghosting system. Instead of the 3 or 7 ghost images they had projected before, the Phoenix now seemed to multiply into dozens of identical ships, swarming toward the Scourge formation from multiple vectors. The enemy responded predictably, dispersing their fire across the Phantom fleet. The real Phoenix, masked by its ghost projections, slipped through a gap in their defenses, followed by its escorts. We're through their first line, Wilson reported. Command vessel is 15,000 kilometers ahead, surrounded by a defensive screen of 8 heavy cruisers. Target those cruisers, Chen ordered. Coordinated fire with our escorts. The Phoenix and its allies concentrated their attack on a single point in the defensive screen. 2 Scourge cruisers erupted in silent explosions, creating a momentary gap. Now, Raj, full speed! The Phoenix shot through the opening, leaving its escorts to engage the remaining defenders. Alone now, the Earth vessel hurtled toward the massive Scourge command ship, a monstrous spine-covered leviathan that dwarfed even the largest Confederation vessels. They're targeting us with everything they've got, Wilson warned as the command ship's weapons batteries tracked their approach. Evasive pattern echo, Chen ordered. Elena, can you give us one more burst of ghost projections? Torres's hands flew over her engineering console. Initiating now, but this is the last one. The system is already overloading. The Phoenix's image fragmented once more, confusing the Scourge targeting systems just long enough for the real ship to close the distance. Weapons range in 10 seconds, Wilson counted down. 5, 3, 2, 1, we're in position. Fire everything, Chen commanded. The Phoenix unleashed its full arsenal, a bizarre mixture of Earth, Confederation, and even salvaged Scourge, weapon systems that no military engineer would ever have deliberately combined. The resulting barrage was chaotic, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective against shields designed to counter standardized Confederation weapons. Explosions bloomed across the Scourge command ship's hull. Systems failed, weapons went offline, and defensive screens collapsed. Direct hits on their main power core, Wilson reported excitedly. Their dimensional drive is destabilizing. Torres's face paled as she read the data streaming across her console. Captain, their drive collapse is accelerating. It's going to cause a dimensional rupture if we're within 50,000 kilometers when it blows. Understood. Chen cut her off. Raj, get us out of here. Maximum thrust. The Phoenix swung around, its engines straining as Patel pushed them beyond design tolerances. Behind them, the Scourge command ship began to break apart, energy discharges arcing between the fragments as its dimensional drive collapsed. "We're not going to clear the blast radius," Torres warned, her voice tight. 20 seconds to drive collapse. Chen gripped the arms of her command chair. "Divert all power to shields and structural integrity. Everyone brace for impact." The Phoenix shuddered as its overtaxed engines pushed it to speeds it was never designed to achieve. The patchwork hull creaked and groaned under the strain. 10 seconds, Wilson counted down. 9, 8. "It's been an honor," Chen said quietly to her crew. 5, 4. Torres looked up from her console, eyes wide. "The Indomitable. There." The massive Confederation flagship suddenly appeared between the Phoenix and the disintegrating Scourge vessel, having executed a precision dimensional jump that most Confederation captains would have considered impossible. "Phoenix, this is Admiral Krav. We will shield you from the blast. Continue on your course." Before Chen could respond, the Scourge command ship's dimensional drive imploded, creating a shockwave that rippled through space-time itself. The Indomitable took the brunt of the blast, its superior size and shields absorbing the energy that would have torn the Phoenix apart. When the sensor displays cleared, the tactical situation had fundamentally changed. Without their command ship and its coordinating influence, the Scourge fleet fell into disarray. Some vessels attempted to retreat, while others fought on with diminished effectiveness. The Confederation forces, pressing their advantage, systematically isolated and eliminated the remaining enemy ships. "Status of the Indomitable?" Chen demanded. Wilson scanned his readings. "Heavily damaged but intact. They're hailing us." Admiral Krav's face appeared on the communication screen. Behind him, the Indomitable's bridge was dim, lit by emergency lighting with damage visible on several stations. "Captain Chen," Krav said, his voice steady despite obvious pain from an injury to one of his limbs. "It seems your decisive offense was successful. The Scourge fleet is in retreat. Earth is safe." Chen let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you, Admiral, for the shield. You risked your ship, as you risked yours," Krav interrupted. "It seems we have both learned something about sacrifice and unexpected tactics." The battle's aftermath was a blur of debriefings, repairs, and ceremonies. 3 days later, the Phoenix hung in Earth orbit alongside the recovering Indomitable and a dozen other Confederation vessels. On its bridge, Admiral Krav stood before the assembled crew. "By authority of the Galactic Confederation Council," he announced formally, "I hereby extend an invitation to Earth to become a full member of the Confederation, with all rights and responsibilities therein." Chen accepted the offered data crystal containing the formal invitation. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored to accept." Krav's 3 eyes fixed on Chen with what she had learned to recognize as respect. "The Council has also approved a joint technology initiative between Earth and the Confederation. Your dimensional ghosting system, combined with our resources, could revolutionize both defensive and exploratory capabilities." He glanced around the bridge, taking in the patchwork construction and jury-rigged systems that had somehow defeated an enemy that had threatened the entire Confederation. "I must admit, Captain, when I first saw this vessel, I thought it an embarrassment, a collection of salvaged parts that had no place among our fleet." "And now, Admiral?" Chen asked with a slight smile. Krav made a gesture that his species used to indicate profound respect. "Now I understand that true innovation often comes from unexpected places." The Confederation had grown complacent in its technological superiority. We had forgotten that necessity and limitation often birth the greatest creativity. He turned to address the entire crew. "You have taught us that sometimes what appears to be a rust bucket may in fact be the most dangerous ship in the galaxy." Later, as the Confederation vessels prepared to depart for their home systems, Chen stood in the Phoenix's observation lounge with her senior officers, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. "So," Torres said, breaking the companionable silence, "what's next for the famous Phoenix and her crew?" Diplomatic missions, technology exchange programs, a nice, comfortable desk job at Confederation headquarters? Chen smiled, her gaze shifting from Earth to the stars beyond. Actually, I've been talking with Admiral Krav. There are unexplored regions beyond Confederation space, places where standard approaches might not work so well. Patel's eyes lit up with interest. Places where a ship that doesn't follow the rules might be just what's needed. Precisely, Chen confirmed. The Confederation has approved a long-range exploration mission, with the Phoenix as the lead vessel. They want to see what other innovations our rust bucket might come up with. Wilson adjusted his glasses, a gesture that had become familiar to all of them. The unknown regions are rumored to contain phenomena that defy conventional physics. Our dimensional technology might be uniquely suited to investigate. And if we happen to encounter any more unfriendly aliens who underestimate the ship held, together with spit and prayers? Torres asked with a grin. Chen turned to face her crew, the people who had trusted her judgment and followed her into battle against overwhelming odds. People who had proven that human ingenuity and adaptability were forces to be reckoned with in the vast expanse of space. Then, she said with quiet confidence, we'll do what we always do. We'll show them exactly what this rust bucket can do. Outside the viewport, the stars beckoned, countless worlds waiting to be discovered, challenges to be overcome, and prejudices to be dismantled. The Phoenix might not be the most beautiful or advanced ship in the galaxy, but it had already proven itself to be one of the most formidable. After all, as the crew of the Phoenix had demonstrated to the entire Galactic Confederation, it wasn't the shine of the hull that mattered, but the ingenuity of those within. And humanity, it turned out, had ingenuity in abundance. The end of HFY.